Hey. Guys, welcome to my channel. This is a story of what if Sasuke regrets his decisions and want to make atonement for his sin. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel, it will surely help me, and also it will notify you on my upcoming videos, and check the description for the creator of this great fanfic. Thank you. Now let's start the story. Chapter 19. Heartless. Undisclosed location. At the dead of the night, Sasuke decided to just find that one base he would destroy on his own. Shin was a very dangerous future threat to anyone else. So, he just found the base, scanned it with his Rinnegan and found out that there's nothing of use. How fortunate. He unleashed a wave of Enten at the inside of the base and watched it burn with hellfire. Once done, he extinguished said flames and smirked evilly before he teleported back to the Uchiha compound. First strike was his. Tomorrow, more will follow the very same fate, hopefully. The next day, so, we are just rushing all the way there? Naruto asked Jiraiya, who nodded. Damn. I knew that I should have found a way to use a Jikuken ninjutsu. She replied forlornly as Sasuke shunshined there. Yo, Haim, Arrow Taicho. He greeted as Team Kyoryu arrived, the other three along the cage children. They waited in silence until Kakashi, Team Ro and the others arrived one by one. The more they waited, the more Naruto became restless. Sasuke saw the struggle of his girlfriend and decided to act accordingly. He pulled her to the side. Oi, Sasu-chan, what are you doing now? Naruto asked her boyfriend, who sighed. Look, this is not a game, so, if you want to live, just close your heart to their suffering, close your heart to their lament. He replied seriously. This is a time to be heartless. Sasu-chan, how can you be heartless most of the time? I mean, I tried but I couldn't always. Naruto asked the Uchiha, who thought before he replied. Because there's so many rabid dogs on this world. Look, I am not telling you to enjoy killing, but, try not to hesitate. Better them than you. He replied seriously before he thought about the war, how she single-handedly changed it. I think that, we need to find a way for you to best the strongest Biju in a fight later. You don't mean controlling his power, do you? She asked, and he shook his head. Good. Cause as much as I love him being my wisdom, well, I don't like using him that way. Kurama deserves better. I know. Bijus are bijus, humans are humans. No sense in discrimination. Once we win, we'll make sure that they are free forever. Sasuke asked his girlfriend, who nodded. But we have one more thing to do. I know. Let's focus on the mission at hand. She replied as the entire team jumped silently. Well, Naruto blabbered about many things, and even was amazed that Tenzo was able to use wood-release jutsus like her. Not that he knows about that at Sasuke's insistence. If he proves to be trustworthy, then it's okay. Sasuke's philosophy of extreme cautious was always something she respected about the Uchiha. She respected enough not to break, and why should she? He was always looking after her, not including his 3 days of harsh training at least. Okay, we reached the most dangerous hideout. Now, what's of interest here, Jugo? Suigetsu asked his friend, who sighed. Apart from his sick notes on the Juin, all we have to do now is to annihilate it completely. Jugo replied as Suigetsu smirked and grabbed the Kubikiribocho, channeled some wind chakra. The blade hummed blue. Sasuke then looked at Jugo and Suigetsu and nodded, his Mangekyo flaring to life. No survivors. And the three darted inside. Jugo fully transformed, Suigetsu preparing to cut anyone to shreds, and Sasuke unleashing hellfire on the poor unfortunate souls. A few minutes later, Sasuke sent his cage Bunshin to the others. As Kakashi got in, he watched the entire thing on the video surveillance, and he was shocked how much the three psychopaths enjoyed killing mercilessly. Sasuke was even laughing madly, as he burned everyone to nothingness, even joking about the entire matter. Jugo and Suigetsu left a trail of carnage. God, what did he get himself roped into? He decided to keep the tapes, and then he saw the trio arriving with a sealing scroll. This is everything of value. Now then, let's get out of here and for me to try something else. Sasuke told Kakashi as he waited for everyone to fall back a good distance before he clapped his hands together, Chibaku Tensai. And before long, the entire hideout was pulled upward to a small planetoid. Then, Sasuke let it drop down and shatter to a million pieces, his Susanoo protecting the teams. Everyone was shocked by the power of the young Uchiha. Sasuke-kun, am I supposed to fight that? Naruko's question was answered by a mirthful laugher. Nah. Let's go to the other ones. Sasuke replied as he ate a chakra pill. On the way, he thought about it and decided against killing the poor prisoners. Prisoners camp Naruto and Jiraiya blitzed the hideout with Karen and Kakashi. As soon as the last guard was dead, they fished the keys and opened the cells. Oi, what are you doing? A prisoner asked. Freeing you. Jiraiya replied neutrally. So, what are we supposed to do now? Another prisoner asked. Whatever you want. Come on, you're free to go, just try to be a nice person and don't make any unnecessary trouble. Naruko's voice was heard. And then, the third base followed suit. And the fourth. The teams rotated on which base is which's target. Be heartless on the guards, but nice to the prisoners. Sasuke might have lost most, if not all of his moral obligations, and Naruto was coming nicely like him, but he have at the least saved some principles. Principles, huh? What principles did matter when he lost her? What principles did matter when her so-called friends were laughing and joking not a month after her death in the hopefully obsolete forever timeline? What principles did matter when she died and took his soul with her? Tsunade told him before his death about the many requests for marriage and he replied by whipping out his Susanoo and replying that he no longer have any hope living. That his death would be his mercy. To spread the word that Uchiha Sasuke is dead, at the same time Uzumaki Naruto died. The message was loud and clear. 1. Life. Partner. Sasuke shook his head as he unconsciously glared at Yamato before he sighed. As Yamato turned to the Uchiha, said Uchiha shrugged. Yamato made a mental note to check on Sasuke's mental health later. As they approached the last base, Sasuke cracked his neck and knuckles, as he volunteered to get in alone. Then, all they heard was the screams of agony, and finally, said screams ceased completely as the Uchiha walked out as he had a grim expression. Rice Country Base had no prisoners. No survivors left. He then put the sealing scroll and unsealed a summoning contract. Snake's contract. He replied seldomly as Anko grinned. Anyone interested? Is there any sea snakes? Suigetsu asked and Sasuke nodded as he opened the contract. He already signed up. Constrictor snakes. Jugo asked and Sasuke nodded, again. So, now that you have the contract, now what, Sasuke-kun? Naruto asked her boyfriend who smirked. A good question but, I don't think that I can allow anyone to sign. It's entirely up to them. He replied as she gave him a nod of approval. Well then, with you two signing, it means that no matter where we are, we can never be broken apart. At this, his two friends beamed. Tenzo aka Yamato was shocked by this. Sasuke, is it true that you want to start a revolution? His question was answered by a snort. People talk too much rumors. Jugo reminded. Jiraiya nodded at the tall teen. So, now what? Kakashi asked as Sasuke sighed. Now me and Naruto fight each other. If anyone wants to stay, please don't get involved no matter what. Sasuke replied seriously as Naruto gave him a hurt look. He sighed as he whispered to her, you can ask anything if you win. At this, Naruto giggled before she broke her professional mode and kissed the Uchiha. Well, at least he was good enough to make it up to her if he lost. Okay, fine. Kakashi, wanna stay? Jiraiya asked as the Hitaki nodded. Gaara smirked as he decided to. Or staying, Team Kyoryu. He smiled as they all nodded at him in gratitude. Naruto and Sasuke would definitely fight each other seriously. Valley of the End Sasuke immediately whipped out his armored Susanoo and smirked at Naruto. If you can break this, I lost. How about that? Sasuke asked Naruto who gave him a shocked look only for her to nod and anchor a few logs just in case. She sighed before she started her assault. She made a few cage buncheons before. Futon. Atsugai. A buncheon started. Suiten. Daibikufu. Another said. Futon. Rasengan. Another launched a Rasengan at the purple monolith. Mokuton. Daijirin. One made a lot of wood spears crutch against the Susanoo. Futon. Fusa Kongo. Her wind-covered chains rushed at the purple giant. At this, Sasuke smirked as the attacks were approaching. Then, he was surprised how the combined might cracked his Susanoo. Said Susanoo however jumped off before. Kaden. Goku Meshitsu. He intoned as searing flames burned the wind and wood. Naruto shunshined away as she repeated her Suiten barrage. Suiten. Daibikufu. 5 clones shouted. Suiten. Suiryuden. Another 5 said. Futon. Kanbi. 10 clones used wind release to augment the concussive force of the sweetened jutsus, making Sasuke smirk in satisfaction before his Susanoo unleashed a wave of Amaterasu at the clones. Oi Tem. No fighting back, Naruto shouted as her boyfriend smirked. Meanwhile, everyone, including Gaara and Jiraiya, were shocked how Naruto was able to use so much high-level jutsus, and it wasn't even her who did so. Can't she use her Moku Bunshin? Suigetsu asked Kakashi, who sighed. Not yet, he replied as the blonde used an old trick. Her futon Bunshins attacked from behind and Daibakua. She smirked as the 100 clones exploded, and Sasuke however smirked as he used his perfect Susanoo for his own defense. Naruto was utterly shocked by the scale as Sasuke smirked evilly. Hey, never thought that it would be so easy, did you? Naruto Haim. He replied as she sighed dejectedly as her plan now had just begun. Futon. Ranjashigami. She intoned as she revealed her trump card. Her hair became long enough to wrap around the Susanu's legs, Futon, Fusakongo. And now multiple chains wrapped around the gargantuan chakra construct and pulled downward to her, only for Sasuke to pull her upward. The poor girl sailed in the air before the Susanoo closed his hand around her and Sasuke used his Rinnegan to put her in a genjutsu. Then, the Uchiha fell down with the now sleeping girl. He carried her on his back before he glared at his now completely shocked and confused team. What? He asked in irritation. Hey, you held back, didn't you? Hehe, you're really nice come to think about it, Sasuke. Suigetsu commented as the Uchiha blushed. Only for her though. He replied seriously as Gaara nodded proudly. Now he understood why Sasuke was so strong. Oi, Yaki, she doesn't have any scratches. Jiraiya asked as the Uchiha smirked. Nope. Of course I would not allow it. But now, how strong is she? He asked and Kakashi whistled at him. Better than expected. Solid A rank. Ninjutsu wise. Easily an S rank. Kakashi replied as the entire team nodded. Hehe, you have no idea. Yet. Would you believe me if I tell you that she will try her best to surpass me? Sasuke replied as his team laughed until he shook his head. And she will. At this, they all were too shocked to reply. Sasuke was easily able to split the earth apart if he wished so. No, he could probably be able to take over the world, and yet, he believes in Naruto surpassing him. What's your plan? Kakashi asked the Uchiha who smirked. These jutsus she used. Nothing compared to what she will use if she will be trained properly. Jiraiya, do you think that the elder toads will be helpful in her taijutsu? Sasuke asked the toad sage who nodded. Good. He. I can't wait to lose to her. That way, she would not feel badly at all. Sasuke, what do you want to ask from my cousin? Karen asked her close friend who smirked before he giggled. Then he blushed. None that matters. He replied seldomly. He. I will make your dream come soon, Naruto-chan. Now then, I can't afford to wait a long time. That old hag better not send her to a dangerous mission without the Hiraishin. Hiraishin. That's it. Kakashi, can you really use the Hiraishin? Sasuke asked his mentor who tapped his chin. Yes, but I still can't explain the mechanic behind it thoroughly. Why? Kakashi asked the Uchiha who sighed. Team Kyoryu are disbanded starting today. Team Taka is back, Team Sabaku and Team Kakashi. Sasuke sighed sadly. Guys, we will make this sleeping angel a Hokage, whether she likes it or not. Now then, I think that I messed up. Somewhere. Kid, what are you talking about now? Jiraiya asked a now smirking Sasuke who walked as his girlfriend was unconscious on his back. Many things. He replied cryptically only for Suigetsu to grin maniacally. Yosh. Let's turn the world upside down. You're not going to say that one day. Suigetsu asked the now chuckling Uchiha. No, something much bigger. He replied seriously. Naruto and he, a few years later. Yep. 2 world changers. Sasuke, really, what are you going to do now? Orochimaru and his hideouts are obliterated. Also, there's something else we found out that you insisted on not talking about. Karen begun only for the Uchiha to launch his girlfriend at Jiraiya and threw 5 shurikens, then he used his Rinnegan to swap position with 5 white bodies. Luck of 2 Uzumakis. Guys, grab them and seal them alive. Sasuke yelled as he used his Rinnegan to put them under a paralysis genjutsu. Gaara used his sand to bind them as Sasuke smirked evilly. I need to learn the Edo Tensei, and we must get the DNA of the 4 Hokages, and ASAP. Sasuke, what are you really planning now? Kakashi asked his student worriedly. I collected a lot of DNA samples in Orochimaru's hideouts, and knowing Zetsu, he will continue being a spy for the Akatsuki. Sasuke replied as he thought a bit. Now then, that was incredible. Look, kid, how are you planning to? Oh, I see. These white things. Jiraiya asked as Sasuke now carried Naruto, allowing the Toad Sage to make a scroll to seal them in a stasis-like state. Exactly. Suigetsu, explain. Sasuke replied as the Hozoki smirked. You can be heartless, Sasuke. Well, to anyone who harms Emoto at least. Anyway, you see, Sasuke wants the Hokages to pass their knowledge and wisdom. Knowing Sasuke, he definitely have a plan to shake down the very world and take it over. Also, his eyes are known as the eyes of the chosen one when great strife and wars tears the world. I read your first book, nice novel, but it was conflicting. Anyways, Sasuke needs the Edo Tensei because he knows that Shodai can teach Naruto, so the Nadaime, but me and the Sandaime can teach all of us, and the Yondaime can teach his daughter. Yes we know, we share everything but showers and WC. Suigetsu explained as Sasuke smirked. His friend was amazingly perceptive. Suigetsu, ever tried shogi? Jugo asked. Oh, I call dibs. Temari announced as Suigetsu sighed. Thanks, Jugo. Sasuke, how many people can you kill? Gaara asked his now friend. For this sleeping angel. Everyone. Sasuke almost yelled, making her stir in his arms. He started to apologize and sing soothingly, and she was now completely asleep. Then Gaara sighed as he made a huge sand carpet for them to fly to Konoha. Gaara, next meal on me. Kakashi said gratefully as Naruto finally woke up at the gates of Konoha. She glanced at Sasuke who gave her an apologetic look. She looked away in shame. She lost. The Tem would definitely ask something humiliating from her. Go ahead. Mock me. Jeer me. I lost to you, and my only chance to make you mine. She whispered forlornly. Sasuke replied by kissing her passionately, as he stroked her back and face, and hair. Just remove the pigtails, and we'll consider this never happened. Oh, and one more thing, congratulations. You almost surpassed the Naruto I knew. No, you blew her away this early. Now then, we're going to eat as a team after the report. And later, we'll talk. Sasuke replied as he then grabbed the scroll of money he confiscated for the Uchiha clan. As the unofficial clan head, he now have sole proprietorship over the land, money and everything. Sasu-chan. Naruto whispered as the Uchiha smirked at her mischievously. She winked at him as they all walked into Tsunade's office. And boy she was not very happy when she heard about Team Kyoryu's psychotic episode. Well, Sasuke's, Sujitsu's and Jugo's episodes of maniac laughter and enjoying killing the entire base at least. Team Kakashi, you are to go and see a psychologist, and right about now. But great job Nautilus. Kakashi, it is time for phase 2. Tsunade ordered them as they nodded in unison. Sasuke felt Naruto's more mature side as she had improved already with Tsunade's and Shizune's company, so he decided to play ball. But if anyone harms her, he felt his Mangekyo flaring to life before he could restrain himself. Sasuke, really, you need all the help you can get mentally. I have some news to tell you if you're stable enough at least. Fine. Just tell Dango-chan. He replied calmly as Naruto glared at him. He smirked as they walked only for her to bite him. Bad Naru. He replied a bit flustered as she smirked at him, showing her sharp canines. Oh, this is just the beginning, Sasu-chan. She teased and he gulped. This was not a good sign. His lovely girlfriend was becoming more like him, and not in the good way. You really need a shrink now. I mean, what if you have rabies or something? Sasuke asked in panic as his teammates were now joking at his expense. Naruto's mischievous smirk was present. Maybe I should bite you instead. Naruto said as she showed her abnormally sharp canines and gave them an evil-looking stare. They all panicked as she giggled before she nodded, still got it. She nodded in content. Sasuke smirked behind his hands. As they walked through the village, they checked the appointed address and got into the office. They waited until Naruto's name was called first. I'm going in. She said as they nodded at her with supportive looks. As she entered and her eyes darted around the office, she locked eyes with the psychologist who was. No way. You're Ino's mom. Naruko's voice was almost heard by the others. Well, Sasuke chuckled as he dismissed the others as they would never get the joke yet. Yes I am, Naruko. Your file says that you don't like formality. She replied calmly. Okay, so, where do I begin? She asked as the woman gave her a sad look. Your childhood. She asked sympathetically. Okay, so here's what I remember. Naruko began as she told her. Many things. Her loneliness and Iruka's biased opinion of her, how she spent the night alone, waking up at any voice, how Suzume never told her anything about the female body, despite the fact that she was her sole source of knowledge, how Sasuke beaten her bullies, earning her small amount of respect, how he was the only one who supported her, as he told her to work hard enough and she will make it. How one day he changed, how he became her most important person. Everything. The woman was shocked. How can a single child support all of that and stay this sane? Sure, Naruko is a bit crazy behind her mask, but God, it was so unfair. I see. You know, I think that we should have a few more sessions, like tomorrow. The Yamanaka woman replied sadly. But yeah, you will become the Hokage at this rate. Thanks for the support, Yamanaka-san. Well, then, good luck with Sasu-chan. She replied seriously as she waved her hands and went outside. Karen nay, you're next. Naruko replied as the red-haired threw a kiss at Suigetsu who shook his head at her antics. You started to break her hard shell. Jugo told Suigetsu who flipped him the bird. I fucking hate ya. He replied heatedly. Suigetsu, I can see you two as a couple. Sasuke said and the Hozoki pointed a finger at him. Do not shoot my ducky down. Sorry. Naruko's threat was then kinda taken back. I'm a bloody duck now. Hey, Aro Kitsune. Sasuke replied a bit calmly as she puffed her cheeks as Suigetsu snickered only for Jugo to glare at him. Duck-haired. He replied as Sasuke shot him with Raiden Chakra. Only Ohime-sama can call me so. He replied as Naruko turned away, her nose held upward. However, her smile betrayed her show of malice. Karen told the woman about her life, how she lost her mother prior to the exam, how the villagers abused her abilities, how she had to defect in order to be safe, how she found a family in Team Kakashi. The psychologist nodded at her. This girl was at least sane, even though she started to develop a split personality. Just accept yourself as who you are, Karen-chan. The kind words were like magic on her ears. Now then, please let Jugo in. She asked the red-haired who nodded and waved at her. Jugo's turn was, well, something else. His past was not something that he loved talking about, but it seems that the very kind-hearted teen had a lot of regrets and guilt. His split personality was something he had very little control over it, that's why he'd rather spend his life imprisoned, but Sasuke gave him an outlet for that rage. In the last mission, he killed, true, his evil side had emerged, true, but now he was totally calm. These urges to kill were able to be suppressed, by meditation, or by medicines and drugs. Something Tsunade found too easy to make and produce. Training also helped a lot. Jugo's biggest fear was to be close to children or babies, hence he opted to stay away from anyone else but Sasuke, Suigetsu and Gaara. You're just a kind-hearted man who have a problem he have no control over. You're sane most of the times, but your problem have a cure. Jugo-kun, what's your goal now? She asked the bipolar guy who sighed. Protect my teammates I think. He replied seriously, I don't know. Well, at least you do have a few precious persons. She replied as he sighed. I killed my first precious persons but one, who was taken from me thanks to a snake. That died by hellfire and hope he enjoys it for eternity now. Jugo replied angrily. She nodded at him. Just forgive yourself, okay? She replied and he smiled sadly at her. I'm going to try. He replied as he walked out, and nodded at Suigetsu who smirked evilly. Dear God, Suigetsu was a chatterbox whenever he wants to. He talked a lot more than necessary, and left almost no details. She asked him one question, he replied by an entire paragraph. A year in isolation can do that to anyone it seems. Well, who's to blame him? His older brother died for him, his parents died when they were young, he trained harder than anyone and grew up in the Chikirigakure of all places, and was known as the second coming of Momochi Zabuza of all people. Yeah, Suigetsu was a true psychopath, although, a very controlled one despite his favorite pastime to cut people's relationships and everything else, be it limbs, torsos, necks. The guy even stated that he enjoys mayhem. Like Kakashi. So, why are you loyal to Sasuke? She asked and the Hozoki smirked. He's the kind of man to change the world. That I knew since day one. He replied seriously. She nodded at him. Also, I want to ask you, why did you enjoy killing these ninjas? She asked only for him to glare at her. I asked each and every one of them to give me some yogurt as a treat, and they never did so. Imprisoned and denied from my cheap favorite food. That's a death sentence for all of them. He replied way too jovially. Suigetsu, son, you need a drink, or a lot of sessions. The psychologist told the psychopath who laughed and showed her 2 fingers. And a girlfriend. He nodded before her was dismissed. Good luck with Sasuke. He said as he walked out as the woman slumped down in defeat. The Uchiha got in, sighed, talked about his childhood, his Avenger self a bit, and then, he stopped talking. Sasuke, is there anything else? She asked and he sighed. I have nothing to talk about. You will judge me. He replied calmly. Last mission in the invasion, you enjoyed killing these Oto nins. She asked and he nodded. Why? Rabid dogs needed to be put down. He replied as calmly as he would talk about the weather. So, what is Naruto for you? She asked and he smiled fondly. My everything. I can't live without her. Literally. He replied seriously. I see. Then, you're clear to go. But have some more self-esteem. You did many incredible things. She advised and he stopped. Nope. Not worthy of her yet. He replied as he went outside. He chuckled as he heard the woman bang her head against the desk. A week later, so, Sasuke-kun, now what do we do? Naruto asked her boyfriend as she visited him in his house. Now we continue to train, and perhaps, have a few dates. On our resting days. He asked as he sighed. I don't know. I'm bored as Tsunade prevented me from pushing my body any further. How about we have a sleepover sometimes? She chirped as he nodded. But first things first, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. She intoned as many clones appeared. You know what to do. The sea of clones went to diagnose the entire house as they started to repair all the cracks, the plumbing, wiring. 1 hour was all they needed as Sasuke now felt guilty about the entire thing. Forgive me for. He begun only for his girlfriend to hug him tightly. He was shocked at the display of affection, but returned said hug. Don't worry about it, Sasuke-kun, I will always maintain our house. Naruto declared as his eyes widened. Our house? He asked as she gave him a shy look. Well, Ka-san told me that. I can move in with you, and you were so lonely so. I heard that. Maybe. She asked as he smiled at her warmly, a grateful look in his eyes before he yelled as he walked out. Guys, girls, get over here. Barbecue party. Sasuke's voice boomed as the team arrived a bit later. Thanks, Naruto Haim. But I think that Tsunade will kill me if we sleep here alone so. Sleepovers for now. Until we become engaged at least. She smiled at him lovingly, but honestly. I don't know if I can hold myself back 2 years. You won't have to. I don't mind you popping my cherry. At this Sasuke's nose bled. Don't worry, Sasu-chan, I will definitely use the pills. And at this, he fainted. Poor Sasu-chan. Never thought he's the shy guy. 3 months later Sasuke smiled contently. What a wild year. Naruto wore the 2 berets he gifted her on her birthday, and had the few chakra-conductive 3-pronged kunai on her twin pouches. He looked at his other teammates who all nodded. Kakashi was already in the gate and so was Jiraiya. Are you ready to finish this? Sasuke asked Naruto who nodded enthusiastically. Training trip for Team 7. Kakashi asked the Sannin who smirked. Training trip for Team Kyoryu actually. Jiraiya replied. Naruto had already bid farewell to her friends, adoptive mother and sister, and her 3 part-time students. Watch me dad. I will surpass you, she said with a serious grin. Hey, never thought that you would pull that off, Sasuke. Who would have thought? Suigetsu asked the Uchiha who smirked. Now with the 3 elders dead, I hope the next council won't be executed by us. Jugo replied. Stop sprouting some morbid nonsense. Karen replied as the 2 guys smirked. Let's go. What are we waiting for? Gaara asked. Thanks for the 2 puppets guys. Kankuro replied. And for these new jutsu's ideas. Tamari added. Doesn't matter now. We have less than 2 years to come back as legends. Sasuke announced. Well then, let's get going. Your true training starts now. Kakashi declared as Jiraiya smirked. The snake and toad's feud will come to an end. Now, we must come back the world's strongest. Naruto replied. Stay safe everyone. Chapter 20. Plot Enclosure. Sasuke and Kakashi and their team decide to join Naruto and Jiraiya, with the Sand siblings on their training trip. During which both Sasuke and Naruto improved tremendously, alongside their teammates and even Jiraiya who finally mastered Sage Mode. After they return, they see that Tsunade is in dismay as a cold war had broke out between them and the great nations. While the 5-cage summit in the Land of Iron takes place, Kisame arrives to Konoha to give Sasuke Itachi, who's on his literal deathbed. Sasuke mourns his brother's death as he realized to his horror that while he surpassed himself from the future, he can't change anything to the best. After his depression and grief at losing Itachi again, Sasuke gets a good surprise. Naruto claims him as her boyfriend, making him faint, and Karen was very enthusiastic that her little cousin will get married and soon enough. However, before that happens, war breaks out. Kumo, Iwa and Kiri had allied themselves with Suna, and it was a gruesome war in which Sasuke and Naruto, who ended up partnered with Kurama after Sasuke revived the 4 Hokages, wreaked havoc on the battlefield. Their team were literal monsters unleashed upon the enemies. After that, Sasuke decided to reclaim the Byakugas as Konohas, and while many ninjas tried to oppose him, he literally dropped some meteors, making Madara laugh in the afterlife and commenting how proud he is of his descendant. Naruto meanwhile was back to Konoha, where she became the 6th Hokage, married Sasuke when she became 17 and won in life. She ended up having a few children. All of them are pure monsters that scared even Jugo and Suigetsu, and even Kakashi managed to hook up and get married. Sasuke was never more satisfied as in the end, the war had unified the world, as Konoha's terms were to assimilate the others in the same system. He also managed to scare the politicians pale while Suigetsu and Kakashi had assassinated most of Naruto's political enemies until the message had gotten across. Finally, the last scene is of an old Sasuke and an old Naruto with their grandchildren already married and expecting. The Uchiha asked the blonde if she regretted having him in her life and she replied by, like hell, Teminata. Which made the old patriarch accept that the world have changed into the best, and that the future was safe. Thanks for listening. I hope you guys liked it. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like for more what ifs and support the author. See you guys in the next video.